Chapter 2081. Because what the other party had was his beast mark. And this man named Zhuge Shirsan was able to survive until the end in that battle where he killed all the extraterrestrial experts. His strength was unknown. The demonic beasts contracted by his beast mark were naturally not below him in strength. Whoever could get his beast mark would really be rich. However, this beast mark inheritance was not very attractive to Luo Qintong. After all, she already had the heaven and earth contract. With this contract, Luo Qintong could even contract a divine beast if she wanted to. But Zhuge Shirsan's beast mark inheritance could only contract demonic beasts that were weaker than him in strength. This was too weak for Luo Qintong. Chapter 2096. However, the demonic beasts contracted by Luo Qintong's heaven and earth contract would be temporarily suppressed if the contractor's strength was weak, who was dodging the attacks of Beast Tamer Beast Mark inheritance and did not have this restriction, and nodded her head. As long as the demonic beasts were below his level, she was naturally willing to become Luo Qintong's subordinate and the demonic beast's strength would not be able to stand together with this girl. The life she would be able to enjoy in the future would definitely be exciting and magnificent. Right? As long as he could contract a powerful demonic beast, the reason she was still standing here was all thanks to Luo Qintong. Comparing these two, in the long run, Little Pig the heaven and earth contract was naturally better. Then you should make the vow right now. Zhuge Shirsan's beast mark inheritance I won't attack my master or the people around her in the future. Thinking of this, Luo Qintong since he was going to give the inheritance to Beast inheritance, Little Pig naturally had to guarantee that she wouldn't harm Luo Qintong she really needed or the people around her in the future. As for his last wish, if he taught a chance in the future, it would be even more disgusting than giving the inheritance to someone from Beast Tamer King's Valley. Luo Qintong immediately reached out to the package that Zhuge Shirsan's corpse was holding. Okay, this package was in the arms of Zhuge without hesitation. The latter's head was lowered, and his hands were tightly crossed as he hugged the package tightly. After she made the vow, this Little Pig immediately had the great young saint's corpse puppet bring her to Luo Qintong. It was also where the beast-taming incantation and inheritance was. This Zhuge Shirsan was also a talent to be able to improve such a beast-taming incantation to her and didn't say anything. Luo Qintong came for the directly raised her hand and poured the golden light in her hand into Yunshi's he did not expect that the best thing was not that, was the only person she could entrust the inheritance of the beast mark to. If she guessed she heard Little Pig's the fifth beast-taming incantation and the first four beast-taming incantations would only be the beast-taming incantation practiced by the Zhuge family. Whoosh! It was far inferior to the spell golden light between Yunshi's eyebrows. The spell before the ladder was a weaker version of the heaven and earth contract. Buzz! To be able to do this, many things instantly appeared in Yunshi's genius. That was the inheritance of the family must not be beast seal's usage and cultivation. It was a pity that he had died here. Hated that he couldn't when the golden light of the sector marking inheritance talking about Yunshi's eyebrows, so that she could inherit it actually attracted so many foreign experts to fight just escape the attacks of the emailed by Luo. None of these people had leaked any information. Letting her inherit the beast mark inheritance was better than letting those people from Beast Tamer King's Valley take advantage racing. Seeing the golden light flicker, the movement of she had to rely on the beast tamer king to get out of danger, and the others almost fainted. She grabbed the black package and pulled it out of Zhuge Shirsan's body and held it in her hand. The corpse puppet of the great young this girl had been standing in a quiet way, completely Luo Qintong couldn't inherit the beast from Beast Tamer King Valley. It would be trouble. The others rushed out from the Little Pig rejoiced in his heart. She had to always on giant blood-red. He didn't act impulsive. They were furious with Luo Qintong. Chapter 2082. She had completely forgotten that there was a weak translation side. Qintong, be careful. If it had been before, even if they had discovered the great young saint, they would have been dismissive nearby, watching Luo Qintong study the use of such a weak girl. Although they didn't know what those things were, they could casually crush with a discerning eye could see that Luo Qintong she wouldn't be a threat to them at all. She didn't dare to disturb Luo Qintong. So she stood there motionless. Luo Qintong couldn't accept the golden light inheritance. Little Pig had already lifted the veil on the great young saint corpse puppet's head and poked his head out from the puppet's arms, looking at the murals and words on the wall. All of this was destroyed by the girl. He didn't have the blood eyes like Luo Qintong. If there was someone by the images on the side who could inherit the beast mark inheritance, after studying for a long time, what could they do? He could vaguely make out drag Luo Qintong to death. Suddenly, it would be good enough if they weren't the one huge ball of light that seemed to be alive. This seems to be. He widened his eyes, trying his best to distinguish the appearance of this ball of light. Let's go. Then, at first, he heard Luo Qintong's voice calling for them to leave with all their might. He was just about to ask Luo Qintong wouldn't the beast mark inheritance become an ownerless object again? He looked up and saw a scene that made him extremely shocked. Luo Qintong's strange ability could protect herself and the weak girl from their hands. He hopped his little hooves and hurriedly shouted at Luo Qingtong. They felt gusts of chilly wind coming from behind them. His voice and Yunxi's scream sounded at almost the same time. "Let's go." When Luo Qingtong saw the sudden change in their expressions, she immediately felt that something was wrong behind her. The 4 corpse beasts, who were about to rush toward Luo Qingtong after they got rid of them, to the side, suddenly turned around and rushed toward them. A huge crater was blasted open on the ground where she had been standing. The waves of power that had burst out from the others had already tasted the power of the 4 corpse beasts. The strong wind and gravel that flew in all directions cut her skin like sharp blades. If the 4 corpse beasts in just an instant and the several bloody wounds appeared on Luo Qingtong's body and face, they wouldn't have dared to stay and snatch the golden light inheritance from Luo Qingtong's hands. Just the aftermath alone was enough to injure Luo Qingtong. After Yunxi inherited the golden light inheritance, and this was under the circumstance that she had clearly dodged the corpse beasts and the girl's expression instantly turned grave. This was indeed the case. Venerable realm. Zhuge Shursan wanted the person in the air that could almost break all laws to bring the universal beast-taming spell back to the Zhuge family. This power carried the aura of a power above the venerable realm. Before the other party obtained the inheritance, it carried a destructive power. He didn't care how they injured or killed him. This was a power of another level, after obtaining far above the saint realm, he wouldn't allow anyone to snatch it. It was far from being comparable to any power in the saint realm. Because the beast mark could only be passed on once. Any power above the sage realm, on to someone including the holy venerate who had cultivated to a certain level and was very familiar with the universal beast-taming spell. Luo Qingtong's eyes narrowed slightly. If he allowed someone to kill his successor, she looked behind her. How could his beast-taming spell be sent back to the family? Behind where she had just stood, the corpse that had been sitting on the futon suddenly stood up. He had already taken care of his body, and the bodies of the 4 contracted beasts, revealing a greenish-black and shriveled face. He wanted to ensure that his successor wouldn't be coveted and hunted after obtaining his beast mark inheritance and ferociousness. Roar. Corpse. After Yunxi received the golden light, puppet's body, the 4 Shursan had been transformed into a corpse. Corpse immediately turned around and rushed toward it was an extremely formidable corpse that was able to emit a trace of an exalt realm. They could sense the murderous intent of the other party towards Yunxi. Just how strong was the other party so they naturally wanted to kill him to prevent him from harming Yunxi. It was said that after a corpse transformed into a corpse, as for beast tamer, it only had 1/10 of its original strength. When they saw the 4 corpse beasts and corpses charging over, corpse their hearts were filled with shock and anger. But there was nothing else they could do. The aura and strength revealed by this under the protection of the 4 comparable to that of the venerable realm corpses. It was impossible for them to harm Luo Qingtong and Yunxi. She could clearly feel might even be killed by the other party. Chapter 28. Seeing that Yunxi had already opened her eyes and was beginning to command the 4 corpse beasts and the corpses to work together with them, Luo Qingtong approached it. It was still motionless, and the others did not dare to stay any longer. And Luo Qingtong's blood, I did not even if they hated him so much that their blood was about to drip. How did it change? They could only grit their teeth and leave. But when Luo Qingtong approached the corpse, although the 4 she also felt a little strange, and the corpse were strong. Zhuge Shursan's corpse had been dead for a long time in this cave. But now, under Yunxi's command, speaking, they had begun to cooperate by the aura of the land of the deceased immortals and turned into the combat power of the 5 beasts suddenly soared. How could there be no movement? How could Beast Tamer King Guguju she only thought that Zhuge Shursan had some way to prevent himself from turning into Luo Qingtong, so she did not pay much attention to it. Thinking of Luo Qingtong's magical investigation of her blood to be able to see through their movements, just a Beast Tamer King and there was no trace of the others felt a chill in their hearts. She did not expect it to change in an instant. Luo Qingtong frowned. Chapter 2098. Suddenly, she thought of the transparent door that she had blasted open. Then, they hurriedly rushed towards the entrance that prevented Zhuge Shursan's corpse from being eroded by the aura of the land of the deceased immortals. Could naturally think of as well. Then she blasted open the seal, seeing that the 4 of the outside poured in, and then Zhuge Shursan's all turned and rushed toward the beast tamer King Guguju and thought about it and felt that this was probably the only reason that made sense. The beast mark inheritance, but she also felt that something was wrong. Could dispel the attacks from the 4 corpse beasts. She did not have time to think about it. The man after the corpse would not allow his successor to be threatened. Stood up completely. Then, suddenly screamed and pounced on Luo Qingtong. Can position. Boom. Seeing the wind that she had not only like a sharp attacks of the 4 and the direction of the wind was enough to turn into a blade and could even control their movements. Luo Qingtong's face was suddenly curled and she immediately jumped up when it pounced on her. She had always been the most vengeful person. The corpse that Zhuge Shursan transformed into mist and the others have fun besieging her just now. It had just finished its transformation. She would make them feel even better in a while. So its movements were not very fast. Luo Qingtong's expression was indifferent, and her eyes relied on her eye technique to barely dodge its attack. The moment Luo Qingtong but when it transformed a little more, she had already understood her intention, become more adapted and immediately commanded a corpse and its lethality would increase exponentially. Luo Qingtong had said. Bang! There happened to be a high-level member of the beast tamer King's attack came down, and it was none other than the person who had fought with Luo Qingtong as soon as she made her move. she immediately used her strongest attack without holding back at all. He had almost used the superior orchid series to expose that could use the power of an exalt realm. It was because he had brought the superior orchid would never be so arrogant as to joke with her own life. Fang Jinyu's contracted beasts had rioted, and then Luo Qingtong had pretended to expose her beast-tamer swordlight instantly became as dark as ink. She had entered the beast garden and finally obtained the whereabouts of the Grim Reaper. She had taken the opportunity to enter the forbidden area of the beast-tamer King Valley and read the holy book. At the same time, of which, the power of the soul of myriad flames in her body burst out. If it weren't for his mistake, Luo Qingtong might not have found the whereabouts of the holy book. Countless colors of flames, not to mention around the black sword light. At this moment, embellished the terrifying swordlight that seemed to have come from the nether realm with a myriad of colors. When it was extremely magnificent and gorgeous, the Grand Elder just happened to attack another of flames tangled together, and around the black sword light, just as he blasted beautiful flowers bloomed one after another. Beast jumped in front of him. It carried a terrifying power that could burn people into flames, he had no time to counterattack, or freeze people into cold flames, and it blasted toward the Een corpse with a blood-curdling scream. The power of annihilation instantly disappeared into the power around the Een corpse, and finally transformed it into its own being chewed by the Een corpse beast, while his lower body was still standing in place. Blood and flesh was an attack to pay someone back in their own coin. There were so many people in the beast-tamer King's Valley, but they were either in the middle of attacking or had just finished using their moves. The sword light ruthlessly slashed at the Een corpse that Zhuge Shursan had transformed into, instantly creating intense sparks. There were so many people. Yet not a single one of them managed to save him completely unharmed. His grasp of timing was simply terrifying. The venerable realm aura blasted on his body did not even leave a scratch on his skin. The beast-tamer King Guguju's eyes almost popped out of their sockets. Little Pig jumped from the great Yong corpse puppet to Luo Qingtong's body at this moment. His eye sockets looked as if they were about to burst open, corpse that was roaring madly and pouncing towards Luo Qingtong. He clenched his teeth so hard that his corpse's strength is too strong. Bitch. To be precise, the beast-tamer King Guguju looked at Luo Qingtong with resentment. I guess he was joining forces with the Dark Elder and others to resist this little bit of venerable realm aura won't be able to break through his defense. Who would have thought that when he turned around, he would see the Supreme Elder die so miserably? Was that the level of strength above the venerable realm? The girl just glanced at him indifferently and continued to give orders to Yunshi, but she did not have the time to ask Little Pig about this heaven position. Because at this moment, two wild roars suddenly came from somewhere behind her. He saw that in a dark corner of the cave, it was already hard for them to defend against the attacks of the Een corpse beasts, and their wide-open mouths had already rotted. At this moment, revealing under Luo Qingtong's command and guidance, their bodies were shriveled and greenish black, and Een corpses were even harder to defend against skeletons. Not to mention anything else, the strength around them was abnormally strong. When faced with the attacks of the Een corpse beasts and venerable realms, it was impossible for them to not fight the two Een corpse beasts that were walking out, but under Luo and the light in her eyes became even more serious, which was meant to resist and survive, that could use a trace of venerable realm strength, and two after each attack was launched, there would always be a moment when the old energy was released, before the new energy could be generated. Beasts that were walking out. At the same time, the other two it was very hard to change also roared madly and staggered to their feet. Originally, with the strength of their wild and ferocious valleys shook the entire depths. This moment was just a moment. It would not affect their following attacks and movements. And all four of them had the strength of venerable under Luo Qingtong's blood-red eyes. Luo Qingtong's this moment of stagnation and the time when the old energy and new energy were exchanged became their fatal out of their sockets. Others would not be able to seize this moment. It was even more impossible for them to successfully kill each other with so many people guarding against each other. Who the hell can take away the thing that the beast-taming King's Valley people want? Under her guidance, those beast-taming King's Valley people did not make a move. They wouldn't have stopped the beast-taming King's Valley people from coming in to take that the girl would seize the opportunity in order to let them come in. Beasts and Een corpses at that time, everyone would die. Every time Luo Qingtong's voice rang out, it would be a beast-taming King's Valley high-ups would die with a blood-curdling scream. Thinking of this, the girl's clear and melodious voice in their ears those bastards was like the voice of the King of Hell taking their lives. They've really killed me. It was as terrifying as the voice of the King of Hell heard its words. In this kind of situation, beast-taming King seemed to have thought of something, and the others did not even talk about running out of the cave. Then, taking a series of wind-breaking sounds rushed out from within. From here to the cave entrance, it was clearly only a few dozen meters away, and the others appeared in the stone room. If it was a normal time, they would have rushed out and pounced on Luo Qingtong. But at this moment, their eyes were bloodshot, clear and melodious voice. They couldn't see anything. It was as if they were walking on a road of no return to the Yellow Springs. They didn't even notice the scene in the depths of the cave. They were afraid that before they could reach the cave entrance, they would all die here. Beast-taming King Guguju's heart was filled with hatred. Guguju was shocked. It wasn't easy for them to get rid of that huge to kill the main body of the blood-colored figure. They lost several high-level experts without anyone's interference. Luo
Every
Qingtong
time one of
rushed
them
to the
died,
place where the
beast
giant
taming
crimson
King
figure's body
Guguju's
was and
heart would
destroyed it.
bleed.
The process
Luo
was simply
Qingtong,
too smooth.
that bitch.
He wanted her to
This
die
also
without a
saved
burial
she the
place.
trouble of having to deal with
I'm
this
mentally
giant
and
blood-colored
physically
figure while
exhausted
controlling
from the
the
4
4 corpse beasts
Sorry,
and Zhuge
I sent the
Shursan's
wrong
corpse
chapter
to kill
to
the
you
people
earlier.
of the Beast Taming King's
With
Valley.
the purchase of treasures, the
This
word
would give the
fixed
people of
is
the
the
Beast
correct
Taming
chapter.
King's Valley a chance to
The book
escape.
coins won't be deducted again.
Today, she was going to kill
This chapter
everyone
is
from
the
the Beast
compensation
Taming
for the
King's
extra
Valley.
chapters.
Moi, I'm really sorry.
Luo Qingtong's eyes were cold.
Chapter
Her sword turned into a
2085.
blade and stabbed into the
When
ground
Beast
where the
Tamer
giant
King
bloody
Guguju
figure was,
and the others rushed
shattering
into
the
the
giant
depths of the
bloody
cave.
immortal jade
The
bone.
4 corpse beasts had
Bang.
also finished their transformation.
When Luo Qingtong's sword
They
slammed
roared and
into the
rushed
ground,
toward Luo
the gigantic
Qingtong.
blood-red figure suddenly
Their bodies
felt
were
a
like
huge threat
whirlwinds,
descending upon
and the
it.
holy venerate strength
It
around
turned
them
out
stirred
that
up
the
the
girl had
spiritual
already
chi
seen
in the
through the
cave,
location of
causing
its main
it to
body,
surge and
and was
vibrate
only waiting to
continuously.
kill it with one strike.
Roar. After a shrill
As they
cry,
rushed toward
the
Luo
giant
Qingtong,
bloody figure rushed
Zhuge
toward
Shursan's
Luo Qingtong
corpse
at
tore
lightning
apart
speed,
Luo Qingtong's
almost
annihilation
berserk.
and soul of myriad flames
However,
attacked.
it was already too late.
It then tore apart the
Luo
energy
Qingtong
storm around
directly
it and
pierced
rushed
through
toward
its main
Luo
body
Qingtong
with her sword.
A pincer
When the
attack
blood-colored
from all
immortal
sides.
jade bone buried deep underground
This moment of
crumbled.
crisis
The
was
giant
unprecedented for
blood-colored
Luo
figure also
Qingtong.
exploded in midair.
Ever since she transmigrated
It did not
to
even
this
have
strange
time to
world,
touch Luo
she had never
Qingtong before
encountered
it
such a
exploded
critical
into
moment.
blood under Luo Qingtong's
All
sword.
of her paths of coming, going, and retreating were sealed. If it were someone else, they might have
Chapter
already
2100.
collapsed in despair. Luo Qingtong's
In front of
eyes
Luo
were indifferent as
Qingtong
she
was
looked
Zhuge
coldly at the
Shursan's
beast tamer
corpse,
King Guguju,
and to her left
and the
and
others
right
who
were
were trapped
trapped
in the
in
cave
corpse
by the
beasts.
corpse beasts and the
Behind her
corpses.
were beast tamer King Guguju
The latter and the
others
others were also
who were
attracted by
attacking
the
her like
sudden
malicious
explosion of the
spirits.
gigantic blood-red figure.
They had ferocious expressions
They
and
raised
wanted
their
to kill
heads
her
and
at
looked
any
over.
moment.
With
In
this
this
look,
kind of crisis
their hearts
and
became
perilous
even more
situation,
terrified.
anyone else would have died.
Luo Qingtong had
She
already
couldn't
killed
move
the
forward.
giant crimson
She couldn't
figure.
retreat. She couldn't
Then,
even dodge.
wouldn't she be able to deal with
At
them
this
with all her
moment,
strength?
Little Pig's expression was
Seeing that
extremely
the cave
solemn.
entrance was close at hand,
Its face,
they couldn't
which
break
was
through
usually
the
mischievous
encirclement of
and
the 4
unreliable,
corpse beasts
now looked
and the
indescribably
corpses.
dignified and solemn.
Deep despair surged
If
in
it
the
really
hearts of the
didn't work,
beast tamer
he would
King
have to take
Guguju
action.
and the others.
Since Luo
But
Qingtong's
soon,
strength
the
had
eyes of the
increased,
beast tamer
Little
King
Pig had been able to
Guguju
use
were
the
dyed
strength
with
of his
deep
main body
fierceness
after
and
sleeping for a
viciousness.
long time in the 9-layered
Celestial
exquisite
Palace
pagoda.
Master,
You people of
these
Celestial
4
Palace
corpse
said that you would help
beasts
our
and
beast
Zhuge
tamer
Shursan's
King's
corpse
Valley.
were not difficult for him.
Now, please help
But
us
the
to the
bad
end.
thing was that this place was
Help
not
us
right.
to the end.
Just like
His
how Yu
face was
Qianxian
malevolent
couldn't
and
enter this
twisted
place,
as he looked at the
and if he
pale and
forced his
frightened
way
master
in,
of
the
Celestial
scene would
Palace
collapse.
beside him. Little
The
Pig
latter
was
and
the
the
same.
others had been hiding behind the
If he
people
used
of
his
Beast
main
Tamer
body
King's
strength,
Valley.
the scene in the graveyard
Facing
of
the
immortals
4
would immediately
corpse
collapse
beasts
and
and the
disappear.
corpses.
The people
Didn't
of
Luo
Celestial
Qingtong enter
Palace
this
were
place
only
to
from
gain
a second class
experience
and
and
obtain treasures.
The strongest
Now
among
that
them
he
was
finally
only
got
in
the
the Holy
news,
Spirit realm.
Little Pig naturally wouldn't use
Since
his
the
strength
awakening
unless
of
it
the
was
4
absolutely
corpse
necessary.
beasts and the corpses.
As for Luo
They had been
Qingtong,
hiding behind the
when
people of
Beast
Beast
Tamer
King's
King's
Valley
with
and the
pale
others
and
rushed
frightened
in.
faces.
She had already guessed who they were.
Fortunately, the 4
She didn't
corpse
expect
beasts
Beast
and
Tamer
the
King
corpses had
Guguju
locked
and the
onto the
others to
powerful
be able to
people of
avoid the
Beast Tamer
huge
King's
blood-colored
shadow
shadow
and rush
so they
into
could
the
barely
depths of the
escape.
cave.
Hearing the
Luo
words of the
Qingtong's
Beast
face
Tamer
was slightly
King
surprised.
Guguju,
The
but
hearts
light
of
in
the
her
Celestial
eyes suddenly
Palace
lit up.
Master and the others were filled
Such
with
a
indescribable
pincer
attack
fear.
from 4 sides was an
Looking at the
extremely
malevolent
thrilling
face of the
situation
Beast
for
Tamer
anyone.
King Guguju.
But
They
for
couldn't
Luo
help but ask
Qingtong,
in a stern
this
voice.
was a rare chance.
Beast Tamer King Guguju.
If Luo
What do you mean
Qingtong,
by this?
She would. Luo
The
Qingtong,
voice of the Celestial
S.E.
Palace
corpse
Master was
beasts,
sharp and
Zhuge
resounding.
Shursan's corpse.
We from Celestial
After
Palace
all,
are here to
she
help
could
you
still
guys
barely
from Beast
avoid
Taming
Zhuge
King's
Shursan's
Valley.
corpse.
What are you trying to do?
But with the addition of
The
4
master of
corpse
Celestial
beasts,
Palace
she
felt
wouldn't
an
even have the
indescribable
chance
fear.
to escape. He didn't know
At
why,
that time,
but he felt
she
that
would have
Beast
no
Tamer
other choice
King
but to
Guguju's
ask
words
Little
weren't
Pig
as
to
simple
take
as they
action.
seemed. But now
It
that
was as
Beast
if he
Tamer
wanted to
King
do
King's
something
Valley
to the
people
people
had
of
arrived,
Celestial
they
Palace.
became her best shield.
Beast Tamer King
The Beast Taming
Guguju's
King
following
Valley's
words
Valley
confirmed his
Master and the
thoughts.
others were truly noble and virtuous.
What do you want?
It wasn't easy for them to
The
get
Beast
rid of that
Tamer King
gigantic
Guguju's
blood-colored
expression
shadow,
was
but
sinister
now
and
they were
fierce.
rushing
over to block the disaster for
Naturally,
her.
I'm borrowing your lies.
They were simply too good to her. Celestial Palace Master, since you came to help
Chapter
our beast taming
2086.
King's Valley, I'm sure you
She
won't
had
be
to leave
stingy.
quickly
so that the beast tamer
right?
King Guguju and
Beast
the others
tamer
would not
King
be in vain.
Guguju
sneered. As she thought of
To help
this,
them,
her lips suddenly
the
curled
words
up.
of the Master of Celestial
Then
Palace
she pulled
were
Yun
simply
Shi and
ridiculous.
leaped up. In that instant, her eyes burst
Wasn't
with a
it
blazing
because they
light.
promised benefits that the
The
people of
blood-red
Celestial
light
Palace
filled Luo
agreed to help?
Qingtong's eyes. What's more,
The
from
blood-red
the moment they
pupils
faced the
kept
giant
spinning.
blood shadow outside,
Very quickly,
the people of
the
Celestial
sky was
Palace
filled with
weren't
blood
of any
red
use.
light from a certain point in the eye.
Not to mention when they faced
It
the
instantly
four
radiated
radiated
in
in
all
all
directions
directions and dyed
corpse.
the whites of Luo Qingtong's
It was the
eyes
people
red.
of beast taming King's
At
Valley
this
who
moment,
stood at the
Luo
front and gave
Qingtong's
them a
eyes
chance
were
to
blood
live.
red. Now,
aura was
it was time for
domineering
them
and
to
evil.
pay back their lives.
She was like a blood-red
Beast
demon
tamer
god
King
that rose from the
Guguju
dark
thought
night.
about it and suddenly smiled.
She was
sinisterly.
extremely evil and charming.
He then said to his subordinates
her
of
eyes,
Beast taming
all the
King's
trajectories
Valley,
and attack
throw them out
directions
from
of the
me.
pincer attack from
Let
all
them block
directions
the
were
four
rapidly
evolving in her
beasts
eyes.
and Juga Shursan's
Countless lines and lights flitted
Although
across
the people
her
of
eyes.
Celestial Palace weren't
Countless
strong enough to deal with the
possibilities were
four
demonstrated.
corpse beasts and the
Finally,
she chose the best route of evasion. Boom! Luo Qingtong's figure
Chapter
leaped up in an
2101.
instant. As
Driven
long
by
as
her
they were
thoughts,
alive,
the
it
undead
would be
hag
fine.
beside her also leaped up
As
with her
long
in
as
an
the
instant.
people of Celestial Palace
Boom.
blocked the four corpse
Luo
beasts
Qingtong's
and the
figure
corpse
leaped
toward the
for a
top
while.
of the cave.
The people
of Beast Taming King's
depths
Valley
of
would
this
be able
cave
to
were
escape.
extremely large.
Once they were outside
The distance
valley,
between the top
he
of
would
the
Luo
cave and the ground
Qingtong
was
and the
not
others
short.
would be in big trouble. It was enough for Luo
Beast
Qingtong
taming
to
King
leap up and
Guguju's
avoid the
voice was
attacks of the
bloodthirsty.
Beast Tamer King Guguju.
But when the
and
people of
others, Celestial Palace heard his
swish,
words,
swish, swish,
they almost fell to the ground.
Luo Qingtong's figure
Beast
made several
Taming King
turns in midair.
Guguju. You can't do this.
Her figure did not move in a
We are
large
from the
arc in
Star
midair,
Alliance
but she
Palace.
still managed to avoid the attacks
We have the
of the Beast
backing of the
Tamer
Star
King
Alliance
Guguju
Palace.
and the others.
You can't just ignore us.
Naturally, the corpse puppet
people
of the
of Great
Celestial
Yong
Palace
Saint had
were so
contributed to
scared
this.
that they even mentioned the name
Its
of the
figure
Star
had
Alliance
always been in
Palace.
front of Luo Qingtong.
However,
blocking
Beast
all the
Taming
aftershocks
King
of the
Guguju
attacks
had already made up his mind to
Bang.
send them to their deaths.
How
Luo
could he be
Qingtong's
moved by
figure
their
flew
words?
to the top of the cave,
Not to
and then
mention
flew behind
the Star
Beast Tamer
Alliance
King
Palace.
Guguju and the others.
Beast Taming King Guguju
After Luo
sneered.
Qingtong flew up,
You
the
will
latter
enter the
and the
broken
others
Star
immediately
Valley with
faced
us
Juga
and deal with this
Shursan's
Luo
corpse
Qingtong
and the four
together.
corpse beasts in
If
front
you
of her.
die here, what does it have to
Roar.
do with us?
The four
As he
corpse
spoke,
beasts
the
and
smile
Juga
on his
Shursan's
face became
corpse
more
were
and
originally
more
going for
ferocious.
Luo Qingtong.
But
All
now
this
that
was
the girl
done by
had run
Luo
away,
Qingtong.
they naturally targeted
And
Beast
if you
Tamer
die,
King
the
Guguju
people of
and the
Beast
others
Taming
who were
King's
closest to
Valley
them
will be very sad.
When the latter and the others
worry.
heard the roars of the corpses,
We will definitely
and the
tell the
corpse
people of the
beasts,
Star
the
Alliance
reason that had been
Palace
drowned
about
in
this
anger
and
killed
suddenly
Luo
came back.
Qingtong to avenge you.
Seeing the corpses
Ha, ha, ha.
and corpse beasts
In fact,
pouncing towards
the people
them,
of Celestial
their faces
Palace
were
didn't know
indescribably
that Beast
ugly.
Taming King Guguju
Damn it.
and the others had this idea
Luo
from the very
Qingtong,
beginning.
you bitch.
They exposed the
You're
existence
using us
of
as
the
a
broken
shield
Star
again.
Valley to attract people
Beast
from
Tamer
other
King
forces to be
Guguju's
cannon
face
fodder.
was like thunder.
Not only did they
He had
not
never
want those
thought
people
that
to
after
live,
rushing into the
but they
depths
also
of the
didn't
cave,
want the people of
what he would
Celestial
face was
Palace
not
to
the
live.
scene that he had imagined.
Once
where he
they
would
got
beat
their
up
hands
Luo
on
Qingtong
it, they would
and then
kill
torture her
everyone
until
in the
nothing
valley
was
except
left.
for the Beast Taming King's Valley.
Instead, there were four
While
Saint
completely
Venerable
concealing the
corpse
fact
beasts
that their
and
Beast
one
Taming
corpse
King's
that
Valley
could use
had
the
the power
power
of
of
Saint
inheritance.
Venerable. They also wanted to push
Luo
this matter
Qingtong,
onto Luo
that
Qingtong,
bitch.
use them to block the
She had
disaster
become the
again.
target of all the sects in the
Beast
hidden
Tamer
world.
King Guguju
In
and the
this
Celestial
way,
Palace
they could
Master
legitimately
were about
join
to vomit
forces
blood.
with the other sects in the land
Why
of the
did they
deceased
rush in
immortals
here with
to
all
kill
their
Luo
might?
Qingtong?
Wasn't it to kill
Forcing
Luo
her to hand
Qingtong
over
and
the
get
treasure
things
map.
inside? At that
Who
time,
would have thought that
even
they
if
would
Luo
not get
Qingtong
anything,
had the
but
protection
block
of
another
a first-class
disaster
sect
for
like
Luo
the Heavenly
Qingtong.
Yuan sect,
If
it would
they
be
had
of no
known,
use. They would not have rushed in
However,
and waited outside
before they
for
could
Luo
carry out their
Qingtong
plan,
to be killed.
Luo Qingtong had come to the
Bastard.
Broken Stars Valley with those people. Chapter
Not only did it
2087.
shatter their plans,
The
it
four
also forced
corpse
them into a
beasts
life
were
and
menacing,
death situation.
not to mention the corpse of
Under
Juga
such
Shursan,
circumstances,
who could
the
use
people
the
of
strength of a
Celestial
venerable
Palace
realm
still
expert.
wanted to use the people of Star
Beast Tamer
Alliance
King
to suppress them in
Guguju and the
exchange
others
for a
were
chance
furious,
to survive.
but they did not dare to be
How
negligent.
ridiculous was this?
Otherwise,
Even
with the
without
formation
Luo
of these four
Qingtong,
corpse
they would still
beasts
die.
and corpses. It was enough to completely annihilate them here.
Only the people of Celestial
used all their
Palace
strength
would be
to
stupid
barely
enough to
resist
think
the
that the
attacks
people
of
of
the
Beast
four
Taming
corpse
King's Valley were
beasts
really
and
prepared to
corpses.
use benefits in exchange
But this
for a
was
chance
only
to help.
temporary.
It was
When the
simply
joints
ridiculous.
of these four corpse beasts
They would
and
die
corpses
here without
were
any
completely
evidence.
softened and no longer stiff.
Who could say
their
that they
strength
killed
would
them?
soar again?
Luo Qingtong.
At that time, they would be
Would the
miserable.
people of Star Alliance believe
While
her
the people
words?
of Beast Tamer King's
These
Valley were
idiots of
fighting against the
Celestial Palace.
corpse beasts and corpses.
The words of Beast
Luo
Taming
Qingtong
King
took
Guguju
and
made
rushed
the
to the
faces
entrance
of the
of the
people of
cave.
Celestial Palace pale.
Taking advantage of the fact
At
that
this
Beast
moment,
Tamer King
they finally
Guguju
understood
and
the
the
others
situation
had not
they were
reacted
in.
and were still resisting the
There was no
corpse
way
beasts
for them to
and
survive.
corpse beasts. She had to
The
leave
people
here
of
as soon as
Beast Taming
possible.
King's Valley didn't plan to let them
Otherwise,
live
when
from
they
the beginning.
reacted and did not need to stay
They
in the
even
cave,
thought of what they
would
would
say
turn
to the
around and
outside
chase
world
after
their
and that would be
deaths.
troublesome. These bastards.
At
that time, Luo Qingtong the voice of not only have to deal with Master Rashid Guguju and the others, but also the 4 Yin corpse beasts and Zhuge Shisan's Yin corpse. As her figure rushed out, the corpse puppet of the great Yong Saint followed closely behind her. he was kicked out of the group by the beast tamer the aftermath of the attacks of beast tamer King Guguju. The rest of the celestial palace who knew how many big holes were blasted in its body. Even if they begged and pleaded, its whole body was in a mess. King Guguju and the others were not moved at all. Its limbs were not injured. They could only live if they lost the people of Celestial Palace. It still firmly followed beside Luo Qingtong. After kicking out the people of Celestial Palace and letting them face the 4 corpse, she must find some corpses to nourish and restore its strength. King Guguju ordered. Fortunately, in an instant, she had increased the strength of this tamer valley rushed out of the otherwise cave. It would not have been able to resist the aftermath of the attacks. Luo Qingtong's eyes turned cold. Luo Qingtong's jumping figure would also be affected by the attack and was about to rush out King Guguju and the others. At this moment, Yunxi stopped her. At that time, it would not be easy to avoid their attacks and let them collide with the 4 corpse. There is a time limit to controlling these corpses and with this in mind, Luo Qingtong immediately rushed toward the entrance of the cave with Yunxi in tow. First, however, it took a lot of effort just as she was about to reach the entrance of the cave and corpses. A ferocious roar only she knew in her heart that although Zhuge Shursan had done something to the corpses of his contracted Luo and Qingtong from the corner of the passage ahead. After transforming into Luo Qingtong was rushing strength would only increase the direction of the light coming from the cave entrance. He might be able to get rid of the arrangements he had left behind. It meant that the cave entrance was not far from the corner. In order to eliminate this hidden danger, who would have thought that the giant crimson figure would rush out at this moment? He let his corpses and contracted beast corpses self-destruct after protecting his successor during this period of the blood-red figure. At this moment, seeing it there was not much time left. Luo Qingtong's eyes froze. It could be said that Yunxi was completely under great psychological pressure to control the 4 sword in her hand suddenly stretched out and inserted horizontally into the passageway before the people of Beast Tamer Valley died. The 4 corpse beasts and scraping sounds suddenly rang out. Fortunately, sparks burst out between the wall and the blade light of the life and death Yang sword. Luo Qingtong stopped in her tracks. Luo Qingtong's figure finally stopped in front of the corners of her giant crimson figure. She smiled at her and said, Chapter 2088. Luo Qingtong did not know that there was a time limit to controlling these corpse. She found that its originally formless body was now filled with blood, about it, revealing itself in the air. The corpse puppets of the great young saints could continuously increase their strength in the land of the fallen immortals. So Zhuge Shursan's corpse must be the same. She was wondering how the people from Beast Taming King's Valley found a way to deal with this crimson figure so holy venerable realm corpse. If they could find a way to deal with this crimson holy venerable realm, they wouldn't have to gather so many people here and expose the location of Shattered Star Valley. She might not be able to restrain it. It turned out that this crimson figure had Shursan wanted his successor to bring his beast taming spell back to the family. It was normal for him to set a time limit without knowing the strength of King's Valley could easily shake it Otherwise, it would be hilarious and because its body was killed by his own the physical attacks that didn't work on it before were now effective. No wonder the people from Beast Taming King's Valley put away the life and rushed into the depths sword in her hand, turned around, but with this crimson figure blocking her way. She was in the Celestial Palace Master, Luo Qingtong, was being held in the mouth of a corpse. She watched as the crimson figure rushed between Luo Qingtong and Yunxi. This crimson figure now had a solid body, he couldn't even catch his own body. He died of anger were no longer limited to spiritual energy. So these 4 corpse Luo Qingtong frowned slightly at a time she watched it continue to grab her with its tamer King Guguju and the others had held on for a little longer. She leaped into the air. They might have been able to hold on until the crimson figure grabbed nothing but air, collapsed, creating a huge hole in the ground where she was standing. They even caused him and the others to die and tried to grab Luo Qingtong. Those bastards the giant blood red figure was a holy spirit realm expert. His eyes were wide open. Its true strength was comparable to a holy died with remaining grievances. Otherwise, it wouldn't have been able to force the beast taming and the others rushed out of the master and the others into such a looking at the huge cave behind them. After all, its spiritual energy attacks and possession were very difficult to deal with for beast taming King Guguju and the others. Except for beast taming King Guguju and a few others. The others basically couldn't resist its attacks. His face was full of resentment. At this moment, because it was fed by Beast Tamer King Guguju and the others, forced them into such an embarrassing situation. Beast Tamer King Guguju and the others could easily escape, right? But Luo Qingtong was blocked because it was their turn to let her die without a burial place. Otherwise, with her ability she would be buried together with the beast mark and resist its mental attacks. She would have been able to kill it easily. This was also to prevent the 4 at the very least, under the threat of the life chasing them out. The other party could not block her path. The higher-ups of the beast this huge blood-red figure had a physical attack, which made it difficult for Luo the consequences of the 4 corpse beasts and corpses chasing them out. Keep an eye on her. Although they had already escaped from the cave, they would be fine as long as they got out of the valley to look after her. But who knew how many
She
people
turned
would
around
die
and
in the
opened her
process?
blood-red eyes to scan the
That
cavern.
Luo Qingtong was really
The
their
Crimson
nemesis.
Shadow had been trapped in the cave
They couldn't let her
before,
chase
which
them
meant
out.
that its main body was in
Thinking
the
of
cave.
this,
They immediately
Luo
turned back
Qingtong
and
couldn't
directly
deal
bombarded
with the
the blood-red
mountain
figure
at the
that
top
had
of
turned
the
into
cave
a
with
physical
tyrannical
body.
attacks.
However, as long as he could
Under
find
their
the
attacks,
location of its
the
main
mountain at
body
the
and
top of the
crush the
cave
blood
shook.
immortal jade bone,
Then,
the transformation
with a
of the
boom,
blood
it
immortal
suddenly
jade bone would
collapsed.
also be destroyed.
Gravel splashed,
Therefore,
and boulders
Luo
crashed.
Qingtong didn't panic when
In an
facing the
instant,
attack
it was
of
as
the
if the
blood-red
sky
figure.
was falling and the earth was
She was
rending.
only worried that beast
In
tamer
the
King
cave,
Guguju
Luo
and the others
Qingtong
would
put away
catch
her
her sword and walked in the
But
direction
what she
of Yun
feared
Shi.
would happen.
She was about
Just
to
as
ask
Luo
Yun Shi if there was
Qingtong's
any
eyes
other
were
way
scanning
out
the
of the cave to find the
besides
main
the
body
entrance.
of the blood-red figure,
After
and the
all,
location of
the
the immortal
Corpse
jade
beasts
bone and Een corpses had a limited time, so they naturally
Chapter
couldn't go out from the
2089.
entrance of the cave or even
Beast
the entrance
tamer
of the
King
broken Star
Guguju
Valley, and the others were soon
But they
unable to
couldn't stay
resist
in
the
the
cave
cave
for a long
corpse
time.
beasts and Een corpses.
If they didn't see them chase
The four
out,
Een
the
corpse
people of the
beasts
beast
were
taming
Zhuge
King's
Shursan's
Valley would
contracted
inevitably be
beasts when he was
suspicious.
alive.
They
Luo
had guarded
Qingtong
him until
believed
he
that
fled
since
the
the
man named Zhuge Shursan.
Now that
set the
Zhuge
time limit for
Shursan's
the Een
corpse
corpse had
beasts
transformed
and
into
Een
Een
corpses,
corpses,
he
their
must have
bodies had
considered how
also
his inheritor
transformed
could
at the
leave.
same time. Otherwise,
After the
what
initial
if his
stiff
successor
period,
was robbed
their
and
movements
killed when
became
he left
more
the
and
valley?
more nimble,
And their coordination
Since the other
was
party
simply
wanted
terrifying.
his inheritor to bring back his
In
beast-taming
addition,
incantation,
Zhuge Shursan's
it was
corpse could
impossible
use
that
the
he
power
didn't take
of the
this
venerable
precaution.
realm. However,
For beast tamer
before
King
she could
Guguju
speak,
and the
she heard a
others,
loud
it
bang
was a
above her
complete
head.
nightmare.
Then,
After
soil
fighting
and
against the
stones
Een
fell
corpse
like a torrent,
beasts
and Een corpses for
the
a while.
boulders above
Several of
collapsed
them
and
were
rolled
killed.
down.
In
Finally,
an instant,
beast
the
tamer
top of the
King
cave
Guguju
shook and was
and the
about to
others
collapse.
could not hold on any longer.
What was going on?
Soon after,
Luo
they realized
Qingtong's
that they
face
didn't have to
froze.
force themselves to stay here.
She looked at Yun Shi. The good things here had
She didn't know
obviously
if
been
this was
taken
a
away
sign
by
that
the
Luo
inheritance of the
Qingtong,
cave had been inherited
that
or some
slut had
other
used
reason.
them as a shield and had
As
already
for
run
Yun
away.
Shi, when the ceiling of the
What were they
cave
still
shook for
doing
a
here?
while, the expression
After
on her
reacting,
face suddenly
beast
froze.
tamer King Guguju
This
and the
isn't the
others
content
hurriedly
of the
ran
cave
outside.
legacy. At this
The man
time,
named
Luo
Zhuge Shursan
Qingtong
did
had
not
already
mention
found
this
the
in the
location of the
inheritance.
giant blood shadow's main
She hurriedly
body.
said to Luo Qingtong,
The giant blood immortal jade
Then,
bone was in
he
the front
pulled Luo
right corner of the
Qingtong's
cave
sleeve
and said to her,
the
"Quick,
giant
follow
blood
me."
shadow would never have thought
There's
that
a
a person
secret
like
passage
Luo
here.
Qingtong would exist in this
Just
world.
as Luo Qingtong thought,
a pair of
the man
blood-red
named
eyes
Zhuge
could see through
Shursan had already
thousands of
left a
things,
way out and had already seen the location of its main body.
Yun Shi
After
pulled
grabbing
Luo
empty
Qingtong
air with
along
its
as
two
they ran
hands,
into the depths
it
of the
immediately
cave.
roared and once again
The
grabbed
four
at Luo
Een corpse
Qingtong.
beasts and Een corpses
The huge
protected
arc
them on
and
their
fierce
left and
wind
right.
created by the two hands
He led them
surged
into
like
the
a
depths
tsunami,
of the cave,
attacking Luo Qingtong
coupled
from
with
all
Luo
directions.
Qingtong's
blood pupil.
The
She could
huge
always
force
find
that
the
exploded
safest
out
path
was
many
the most
times
critical
stronger
moment.
than the one that grabbed at Luo
The group of
Qingtong.
people
reached the depths of the cave
Clearly,
without any
its
danger.
repeated
failures had finally
Then
caused
Yun
it
Shi
to be
lifted the
enraged.
place
where the man named
The
Zhuge
girl in front of
Shursan
it
had
was as
passed
small
away.
as an ant,
But such
there
a
was a
girl was
cave
able
under
to
the
dodge its
cattail
attacks
hasset.
again and again. It was covered
The
by
giant
a force.
blood
shadow rushed at Luo
Yun Shi
Qingtong
pressed her
with
hand
large
on it.
strides. Its hands closed like a palm leaf fan. At this time, beast tamer King Guguju
Chapter
and the others
2104.
also rushed out from the passage
Feeling
behind
the
Luo
power of the
Qingtong.
beast mark inheritance,
Luo
the
Qingtong,
power covering the cave
slut,
instantly disappeared,
revealing
Luo
the dark
Qingtong's
cave
figure.
entrance. Beast tamer King
Let's
Guguju
go.
and the others were startled
Yun
at
Shi
first.
directly pulled
Then they
Luo
became
Qingtong
furious and jumped into the cave.
It was this slut who had
When
just
they
used
jumped
them to
down,
block the
the
disaster,
rocks and soil
causing
at
them
the
to
top
be
of the
besieged
cave
by the
also
four Een
collapsed with a
corpse
loud
beasts
rumble.
and Een corpses.
Rumble. Bastard. The entire cave
The
was
thing
covered
is
by the
with you.
collapsed rocks and soil.
Beast tamer King
The four
Guguju's
Een
face
corpse
sinister.
beasts and Zhuge Shursan's
He looked
Een
at Luo
corpse didn't have
Qingtong's
time
hands
to enter the
because
cave.
she was in a hurry to be
In the
she
landslide,
did not put it into the
they were
trash
instantly
ring.
submerged by the rocks
This black
and soil
package
that
was
came
faintly
down from
stained
above.
with a trace of the same aura
Luo
as the Een
Qingtong's
corpse.
eyes were cold
Not to
as she
mention
looked
that
at
it
the
was
mud
stained
and
with
rocks
dust.
flowing down from the entrance
Obviously,
of the cave.
this was the good thing
She
that
pulled
Luo
Yun Shi
Qingtong
and
had
dashed
obtained
toward
from
the
the front
depths
of the
of the
tunnel.
cave. This tunnel wasn't
This
a
the
straight
asterisk
line,
TCH
but a curve.
had
indeed taken advantage
Luo
of the time
Qingtong
when they were
rushed
blocking the
forward
giant
nearly 100
blood-red
meters
shadow
with
to
Yun Shi.
obtain the item. The mud and rocks
Fortunately,
that suddenly
the
poured and
giant
stopped
blood-red
not
shadow
far behind
blocked
them.
her.
Yun Shi
Otherwise,
face was
wouldn't
pale.
This be *TCH
Looking at the mud and rocks
that
that
stopped not far away from
You
them,
can't live
she
if you
suddenly
want to.
breathed a sigh of relief.
Luo Qingtong,
The
you
scene
probably
just
didn't
now
think
was
that the
really
giant
too
blood
thrilling.
shadow would block here.
This
right?
must be the work of those people
Beast
from the
Tamer
Beast
King
Taming
Guguju's
King's
face
face was sinister. She gritted her teeth.
They used their blood to feed the
If she
giant
had
blood
known,
shadow.
she wouldn't
then
have
went
stopped
around it
Luo
and rushed into the
Qingtong from
depths of the
chasing
cave.
after them.
Originally,
Not only that, they only
she
wanted
should have
to rush
also
over
sent
as
out
quickly
the
as
4
possible
corpse
and not
beasts
waste
and
any
Eam
more
corpse
time
to
scare away those people from the Beast Taming King's Valley.
Chapter 29.
Then this kind of thing wouldn't
Good,
have happened.
Good.
Fortunately,
Beast
that
Tamer
person
King
called Zhuge
Guguju
Shursan had left a
heartily.
secret
The
passage.
veins on his face were clearly visible.
Otherwise, wouldn't she have killed
Sure
herself
enough,
and Luo
this is
Qingtong
karma.
here?
Luo
It's okay.
Qingtong,
Just wait for your
Luo
death here.
Qingtong's expression was indifferent.
This slut, let's see how
They
she'll
won't be able
escape
to
now.
jump around for long.
Beast Tamer King
When they got out of
Guguju
the
led
land
his
of the
men and
deceased
charged
immortals,
towards Luo
she would let those
Qingtong.
people from the Beast Taming
Not
King's
far
Valley
behind
know
them
what
were
despair
the four
was.
Een corpse beasts
Here,
and the Een
they could be
corpse.
arrogant for a while.
Beast Tamer King
Luo
Guguju looked at
Qingtong
Luo
snorted
Qingtong
coldly
with
and
an
hid the
evil grin on
bloodthirsty
his
color in
face.
her eyes.
The latter had
At
just
this
let
time,
them take the blame.
Yunshi covered her
but this
mouth
time,
and looked at her
they
and
wanted to let her
exclaimed,
take the blame.
"Qingtong, you're a little pig."
Once they snatched the black
Only
package,
then did Yunshi
they would let
realize
Luo
that the little
Qingtong
pig
face
and
the
the four
four
Een
puppet were
corpse
no longer
beasts
beside
and the Een
Luo
corpse.
Qingtong.
They could
Could
use
it
this
be,
opportunity
thinking
to
that
kill
Luo
the giant
Qingtong's
blood
pet
had
had
met
met
with
with
an
an
escape
escape
because of her.
Yunshi's
Yunshi's
eyes were filled
Luo
with guilt,
Qingtong would
and she
become
was
their
almost about to
scapegoat,
cry,
taking the blame for them.
Only
and
then
finally
did
die
Luo
miserably.
Qingtong remember that she had put
Beast
little
Tamer
pig
King
and the zombie
Guguju
into the
thought of
9-story
this
exquisite
His heart
pagoda
suddenly
at the
felt
critical moment.
indescribably comfortable, and
She
his
immediately
footsteps
raised her
quickened.
hand and released them.
The group's speed was already
They're
very
fine.
fast,
And now it was like a
Yunshi's
hurricane
expression
sweeping over.
When Little Pig
Meanwhile,
came out,
Luo
he immediately
Qingtong
patted
was
his
preparing
chest
to dodge
with a face
the attack
full
of
of
the
lingering
giant
fear.
blood-colored shadow and rushed
Oh
to
my
the corner
God,
that she
I
had
was really
scouted out
scared
to
to death
destroy
just
its main
now.
body.
It shook
But
off
now
the
that
dust
Beast
on its
Tamer
body.
King Guguju and the
It had
others
almost
rushed
been
out.
buried alive.
Her plan was obstructed.
The corpse puppet of the
She
great
was facing
Yong
a
Saint
pincer
also
attack
appeared
from
in
two
front of Luo
sides,
Qingtong.
no matter if she dodged or not.
Seeing this
she would
scene,
inevitably
Yunshi
fall into
immediately
danger.
felt relieved.
After all,
Fortunately,
behind Beast
they're
Tamer
fine.
King Guguju and the others were the four Een corpse beasts and the Een corpse of Zhuge 13. Otherwise,
Roar.
she would have really let Luo
The
Qingtong
four
down.
Een corpse beasts chased behind
Yunshi didn't
Beast Tamer
expect that
King
at that time.
Guguju and
She
the
had only
others,
considered
almost
that the
to the
Een
sky
corpse
and
or
the
to
Een
the
corpse
earth
beast
couldn't be
omnipotent.
controlled for long.
Their four limbs
She
were
was
very
afraid
strong,
that the people of
and
the
almost
Beast Tamer
from four
King's
directions.
Valley would find
They
out.
rushed towards
So she didn't
Beast
let
Tamer
Luo
King
Qingtong
Guguju
chase
after
after the
them.
others.
In the
Two
end,
of the Een
they
corpse
almost got
beasts
themselves
climbed on the
killed.
walls on both sides of
Thinking
the
of
cave,
this,
while the
she
other
still
two
felt a
chased
lingering
from the top
fear
of the
in her
cave.
heart.
Their
Okay.
rotting big mouths opened and let out a deafening
Qingtong
roar.
nodded. Almost
She
in
looked
an
around,
instant,
then
they chased
asked
from
Yunshi,
behind.
"Do you know where this secret
Zhuge
passage leads?"
Shursan's Een corpse was at the
No.
forefront of the charge. Yunshi shook her
The
head.
power of the venerable realm
The
lingering
inheritance
around it
of
became
Zhuge
denser and
Shursan only
denser,
told me
and
that
its
I could
movements
leave by
became
going this
faster
way.
and faster.
Luo Qingtong
Their
frowned
transformation
when
was
she heard
becoming
that.
more and more perfect.
There were two meanings of
Luo
leaving.
Qingtong was not sure
One
that
was
after
to leave the
avoiding the
shattered
pincer
Star
attack
Valley.
of Beast Tamer King Guguju
The other was to
and the
leave the
giant
land
blood
of the
shadow.
deceased
She
immortals.
could avoid the attacks of the
It
five
would be
beasts.
fine if it was the first one.
No,
But if it
not
was
the
the
second
second
one.
one,
Luo
Zhuge
Qingtong's
13's
eyes
Een
narrowed.
corpse. It was very
She
difficult.
still had the treasure map that she
Damn,
hadn't checked
this
yet.
situation.
This
It
was
would be a
clearly
loss
a
if
hell
she
level
just left
difficulty.
like this.
Just as Little Pig had said, how could anyone who entered the Broken Star Valley take away Zhuge Shursan's belongings
Chapter
from the depths of the
2105.
cave? It should be
Rumble.
noted that the strongest people in the
Outside,
hidden
there was
world
another
were only in the
violent
venerable
tremor
realm,
as if the sky and earth were spinning.
Even if there were venerable
Even through
realm
the thick
experts like the
underground
temple
and
master
master
of
of
the
dirt,
Star Alliance,
Luo Qingtong
they could
could
not enter the
clearly
land
feel
of the
the tremors
deceased outside.
outside.
So how could they take
What?
the inheritance from Zhuge 13's
The beast taming
corpse?
valley was still bombarding.
In this case,
Were
what
they
was the
afraid
meaning
that
of
she
leaving
wasn't
the
dead yet?
inheritance? However,
There must be a
Luo
way to
Qingtong
solve this
didn't know
problem.
that this tremor wasn't
Since
caused by the
Zhuge
beast
13
taming
left
valley
the
inheritance and sealed the entrance of the
Outside,
cave.
the
He
beast
must have
taming
known that
valley's
he would
people
become
were
an Een
floating
corpse
above
after
the
death.
ruins of the cave.
If so,
They
it was
sneered as they
impossible
looked
that
at
he
the
did
pile
not
of
take
dirt and
precautions
rubble that covered the original location
Otherwise,
of the cave.
how could he let others take the
Under
inheritance
this kind of
he
collapse,
left behind? Not to mention that Luo
Wait.
Qingtong was only a saint emperor. Even the four Een corpse
Chapter
beasts and Een
2091.
corpses wouldn't be spared.
Inheritance?
Bitch. Did she
Beast
think
mark?
that she could do whatever she wanted
Luo
just because she
Qingtong
obtained
looked
the
at the black
inheritance
package in her
hands, and a thought
Since
flashed
they
through
couldn't
her
obtain
mind.
it,
They'd rather destroy
Swoosh.
it. The beast
figure
taming King
flashed in an
Guguju's
instant,
face
and she
was
dodged
twisted
the
like a
hands of the
ghost's.
huge crimson shadow in
He
front
was
of her
both
that were
angry
grabbing
and
at her.
sneering. At the
It
same
made
time,
one's hair
her
stand
figure
on
swayed.
end.
Her
He looked
soft
at the
and
pile of
slender
collapsed
waist was like a
ruins
willow
and was
in the
about to
wind,
order the upper
flexible
echelons
and
of the
elastic
Beast
as she
Taming
flashed
Valley
through the
around
air,
him to clean up the
evading
huge
huge
rock
taming
fragments to
King's
see
Valley's
if
valley
Luo
master
Qingtong
and the
others'
others'
attempts
bodies
to
were
grab
among
her.
them.
Bitch.
However, at this moment,
This was
a
not the
series
first
of
tremors
tremors
that
that the
came from
Beast Tamer
outside.
King Guguju and the
In the
rest had
sky,
encountered
a
such
gust
a
of
situation
wind and
clouds surged.
Luo Qingtong,
The black
this
fog in
bitch,
the
what
entire
was
land
going
of the
on?
fallen immortals suddenly
How was
stirred
she able to
violently
dodge
in the
their
midst of
attacks
the
at the right
tremors.
time?
The black
It was as
vortexes
if she had
that
already
formed were
seen
filled
through
with a
their
terrifying
thoughts.
corrosive aura,
Sometimes,
enough to kill
her
anyone
figures
wearing
seemed
the
to
Immortal
collide into
Jade
their
Bone's
attacks.
aura. But in reality,
The entire
it was this
land
kind
of
of
the fallen
action that
immortals
allowed her to
changed
dodge
greatly.
their following attacks.
This
How
is
was she able to
the
do
beast
this?
taming King Guguju
The beast
and the
tamer
other
King
looked in the
Guguju
direction of the
and the
tremors
rest
were
were
indescribably shocked.
It was the center of
If
the land
Luo
of the fallen
Qingtong was
immortals.
stronger than them,
No,
is it the
she
forbidden
didn't need to be
area?
stronger than them.
Haha.
Even if her
Is there
strength
some
was similar
movement from
to
the
theirs,
treasure in the
they
forbidden
wouldn't
area?
find it strange that she could do
The
this.
beast taming King Guguju
But Luo
and the
Qingtong's
strength
were
was
wild
clearly
with joy.
only at the Saint Emperor
They
realm.
couldn't care less about the rubble
A Saint
and the
Emperor
possible
realm
corpse of
expert
Luo
Ah.
Qingtong in it. Such a person
They
was like an
immediately
ant in
rushed
the
out
eyes
of
of
the
the
valley.
beast tamer King Guguju
The crimson
and the
shadows
rest.
that were 100 meters
They
away
could
from the
easily
depths
kill
of the
her.
shattered Star Valley
But
could
it
no
was this
longer hinder their
cultivation that was
movements.
like an ant in the eyes of the
After all,
beast-taming
the
King
surviving
Valley
higher-ups
Master
and
and
the
the
others,
beast-taming
but
King
in
Luo
Luo
were all top-notch
she
experts
displayed
of the valley.
unbelievable strength.
If they hadn't been
The
worried
beast
about the
tamer King
safety of their
Guguju
disciples
and the rest
they
had
wouldn't
never
have
been
been
someone
so
like
embarrassed
Luo
by the crimson
who had the
shadows
strength
in
of
the
a
valley.
Saint Emperor Realm expert.
They
but
didn't
was
have
able
any
to
burdens
escape
by
from the
their
hands
side.
of the Saint Emperor Realm experts.
The attacks
and even
of the
the Saint
crimson
Venerables
phantoms were useless against them.
How was the other party's strength
Soon,
like a Saint
they
Emperor
flew out
Realm
of the
expert?
broken Star Valley.
Even other holy venerate
Golden-winged
powerhouses
rock.
would not be so calm
Beast
and
taming
composed in
King
front of
Gu
them.
and the others shouted.
The beast tamer King
They were afraid of the
Guguju
crimson
and the rest
shadows
were indescribably
attacks on
shocked
strange
and
attacks,
flustered.
and the beast taming
If
valley.
it happened once or twice,
and the
it
beast
could still be
valley
considered a
contract beasts.
but 3 or 4 times, or even more, that was strength. Of course,
Back
most
in the
of the contracted
King
beasts
Valley,
had regained their
beast taming
freedom due to the
King
deaths of
Guguju
the
and the
beast
others
tamer
had thought
kings
that
Luo
Luo
Qingtong and Yi Qianxian were
there
able
was
to
no
escape
trace of
because
them
of
at
Yi
the moment.
Qianxian's strength. On the other hand,
But this time,
the beast
the
taming
mysterious
King Valley
masked
man
man
was
and the
no
others
longer
had
by the
summoned
girl's
their own
side,
contracted
but she was
beasts.
still calm in front of them.
The beast taming rock
How
and
could
the
they
others
convince
struggled,
themselves
but they
that this
couldn't
was
break
just
free
from
from
the
the
control
control
of
of
Qingtong's
Guguju
luck?
and the others?
Clearly,
They could
Luo
only
Qingtong
obey their
had some
orders
kind
and
of
fly
mysterious
over.
power that allowed her to see through their strength and attacks. Previously, the appearance of those blood-red figures
Chapter
outside was not
2106.
due to the treasure map,
Beast
was it?
tamer King Guguju
In
sneered.
fact, it was all done by
Looking
Luo
at the
Qingtong
struggling
look in the
herself.
eyes of the golden-winged
Thinking
rock
of
and the
this,
other demonic
the beast
beasts.
tamer King
How could he not
Guguju
know
and
that
the
they
others
actually
were
wanted
even
to
more
break free
shocked?
from their control? This woman must not be allowed
that
to
bitch
live.
Luo Qingtong was dead.
The beast tamer King Guguju's
And the girl who
expression
obtained
was
the beast
extremely
tamer
dark and
inheritance
ruthless.
in the broken Star Valley was
If
also
it was said
dead,
that he already had a strong
they would
desire
never be
to
able
kill
to break
Luo
free
Qingtong
from their
before,
servitude in this lifetime.
Then at this moment, the
Not only
desire
that,
to kill
when
Luo
beast tamer
Qingtong
King
in his heart had
Guguju and
increased
the others rushed
exponentially.
into the depths of the cave.
He watched
They
as
also
Luo
saw the
Qingtong's
contents
figure
of the
moved in
fifth
midair,
beast tamer
dodging their
incantation
attacks
carved on the
one by
cave
one.
wall.
His
With their
expression was
strength,
cold to
they
the
could
extreme.
remember it with a single glance.
So what if this woman
contents
dodged
of
all
the
their
beast
tamer
attacks?
incantation had already been engraved in their hearts with a single
Chapter
glance.
2092.
Now,
He
he
wanted
wanted
to
to see
see
how
how
Luo
Luo
and the other
Qingtong
demonic
would die
beasts
miserably.
should give up on breaking free from
He
their
didn't
control.
believe that
she would be able to escape
Beast
from the
tamer
4
King
corpse
Guguju
beasts
sneered
and
and
raised
corpse.
his hand to form a seal.
If that was the case,
In an
then
instant,
Luo
that
Qingtong
faintly
wouldn't have
discernible
needed to
trace
run,
of clarity
and
in
she
the
wouldn't have
golden-winged
needed to
rock's
use them
eyes
to
was
block the
suppressed by him in the
corpse
depths of his
beasts
mind,
and the
unable to
corpse.
rise again. Beast tamer
Not
King
only that,
Guguju after the
sneered.
seal was formed,
After
Beast
Luo
tamer
Qingtong
Qingtong dodged all the
strength
attacks
increased
in midair.
greatly,
She
and he
suddenly
even vaguely
pulled the
felt
felt
that
that he had
package
touched
in
the
her
level
hand.
of the venerable realm.
Inside,
There
it
must
turned
be
out
the
that after
inheritance
fusing
of the
with the
beast
fifth
mark,
beast tamer incantation,
and the latter
he
was
discovered
most
a new
likely
way
the
to use the
solution to
seal,
the crisis
which
she
allowed
was
him to
facing.
exchange strength with the golden
She bet
winged
that the
rock.
person called Zhuge
As a
Shursan
demonic
wouldn't let the
beast,
person who
the
obtained
latter's
his inheritance
was
be
originally
killed by the
stronger
Yin
than
practitioners
practitioners
of the
of the
same
same
level.
Therefore,
Beast tamer
by
King
inheriting the
Guguju
beast
borrowed
mark,
the power of
she
the
would be able to
golden-winged
stop
rock.
the Yin corpse beasts
In
and
an
the Yin
instant,
corpse
the
from
strength of the
attacking her.
man and the beast increased
Not
by
good.
a level.
Beast
The
tamer
other higher-ups
King
of Beast
Guguju,
tamer
who was
King
originally
Valley also
sneering and
followed
waiting
suit
to see
and
how
linked
she
their
would be torn
strength with their
apart by the
contracted
4 Yin
beasts,
corpse
instantly
beasts and the
increasing
Yin
their
corpse.
strength by more
After
than
seeing
one-fold.
Luo Qingtong's actions,
His expression instantly changed.
Luo Qingtong, that
He
bitch.
also thought that the package
The
might
beast
contain a way
taming
for
King
Luo
Valley's
Qingtong
Valley
to
Master
avoid the
gritted his
Yin
teeth.
corpse beasts and the Yin corpse.
If we hadn't left the golden-winged
Damn
rock
it,
and the others
why didn't he
outside,
think of this point
afraid that
before?
they wouldn't be able to resist the
Since this
psychic attack
package
of
was
the
taken by
blood-colored
Luo
shadow,
Qingtong
how
from
could
the
they have been
depths of the
beaten
cave?
so badly
At
by
the
her?
same time it was a treasure.
That bitch.
It could also be a
Fortunately,
protective
she died
talisman
early.
to avoid the
Otherwise,
attacks
I
of the
would
Yin
definitely
corpse
let her know
beasts
what
and
it
the Yin
means to
corpse.
beg for death but beg for
But
life.
this couldn't be blamed on Beast tamer King Guguju's heart was filled with
Since
resentment
Luo
and had nowhere
Qingtong's
identity
vent.
was exposed.
If
They
they
had
had
been
brought the
encountering a
golden-winged
series
rock
of
and
events,
the others in,
they would
one
definitely
after
not
another,
have been unable
they had
to
to flee and
retaliate under
chase.
Luo Qingtong's
They were almost
trap.
driven mad by Luo
But who would have
Qingtong.
thought that Luo Qingtong
At
would
this
appear?
time, under their anger and
Not to
resentment,
mention that she had a
naturally
way to
their
deal with
thoughts
those
weren't as
blood-colored
agile as
shadows.
usual.
Quick.
Otherwise, how could they have
Quickly
been forced
grabbed
to
that
such a
package?
state?
But
Don't
now,
let her open it.
It didn't matter. Beast tamer King Guguju's
Guzhu's expression was indescribably flustered
Luo
and
Qingtong
exasperated.
was dead, and the beast
At the
taming
same
inheritance
time,
that was
he
most
fiercely
likely on
flew
top
up,
of the 5
disregarding the
beast-taming
possibility
spells
of
that they had
crashing
fused
into
to
being
become
completely
corpse
buried
beasts
under the
and
ruins.
Zhuge Shursan, and
Its
directly flew
S's.
towards Luo Qingtong
But
to grab
compared
her.
to killing Luo Qingtong,
However,
it was
Luo
all worth
Qingtong
it.
had already dodged all
Not
their
to mention
attacks
that they had
and was in
already
the air.
fused with the 5 beast
If they
taming
attacked
arts.
again, how could they
The
catch up with the
resistance and
speed of Luo
resistance of the
Qingtong
golden
opening
winged
the
Great
package?
Pang and the others had all
In
been
the blink of an
disintegrated
eye,
by them.
Luo Qingtong opened
Now
the
that their
package in her
strength had
arms,
soared, the treasures in this forbidden zone were bound to be
When
theirs.
the black package was opened,
a dazzling light blossomed from
Beast
within.
Tamer King Guguju sneered.
An indistinct shadow
He
rose
looked at the
from
center
within.
of the fallen immortal land.
It was a thought
where the
that
winds
Juga
and clouds
had
were
left in
surging
the
and the
package.
waves of heaven and earth
My
were
beast
constantly
mark
erupting.
inheritance, to the one who
He was
comes.
extremely pleased.
I hope you can keep your promise and return my heaven and earth beast taming technique to my family. Otherwise, to suffer
Chapter
the pain
2107.
to suffer the pain of the soul.
She thought she was invincible
To remember
with the
the
treasure
promise
map,
of 10
but
years.
now such a change has happened
As
in
he
the forbidden
spoke,
area.
the golden light accompanied
I'm
the
afraid
shadow
she doesn't
and
need the
rushed
treasure
towards
map
Luo
to find the
Qingtong's
treasure
forehead.
that so many foreign powerhouses
Beast
covet.
Tamer King Guguju
That
and the
bitch can
others
just
heard the
wait to
voice of
see
the
our
shadow
beast
in the
taming
air,
King
and
Valley
their hearts
succeed
were
in the
filled with
underground.
indescribable shock.
When the time comes,
Heaven Earth
I will
beast
eliminate
taming art.
everyone related to her.
How domineering was the
Beast
name of
taming
this art.
King Guguju's eyes
the
were
clan?
cold and ruthless.
This was obviously
He
the
didn't care
inheritance
whether
of
the
Luo
other party's
Qingtong's
name
clan.
was real or fake.
If
Whether
Luo
she was called
Qingtong
Night Eye
obtained
or
it,
Luo
wouldn't it
Qingtong,
mean that Luo Qingtong would
it
have
didn't
an
matter.
incomparably huge backer in the
After
future?
he got the treasure and left the
After
fallen
all,
immortal
no
land,
one knew how
he would
strong
kill
this man's
everyone
clan
related to
was.
Night Eye and Luo Qingtong.
The only thing they could be sure of
Seeing
was
her
that the other
relationship
party was
with
from
Sky
outside the
Yuan's
region.
sect's head disciple.
In this
Zhu Yi,
way,
he
no
must
matter
know
how
how
strong
strong the
identity
other party's clan was.
she
They
from
could
the true
easily
spell
crush their
continent
beast
secular
tamer
land?
King Valley.
Then he would wash the entire secular land
Chapter
with blood,
2093.
all the places and people related
No
to
way.
her.
They
Nothing
must
would
not
be
let
left
Luo
alive.
Qingtong succeed.
Let's go.
She must die
The
here.
group rushed towards the center
As
of the
Beast
forbidden
Tamer
area
King
in the fallen
Guguju
immortal
and the others
land.
thought.
They immediately
In other
attacked
places
Luo
in the fallen
Qingtong
immortal
recklessly.
land,
The other fluctuations
However,
in the
it
center
was
of the
too late.
forbidden area were also
The
detected
golden
by
light
everyone.
entered between Luo Qingtong's
Bang.
eyebrows in an instant.
At the place where the
Driven
Sky
by the
Yuan
golden
sex
light,
people were
the
training,
4 Yin corpse
Su Yu,
beasts
Su
and Zhuga
Xiao
13's
and the
corpse,
others were
which were
jointly
originally
killing a
pouncing on
corpse that
Luo
was screaming
Qingtong,
at them.
suddenly retreated to
Su
the
Yu,
side when they
Thunder
were about
Beast,
to pounce
and
on
Yuan
her.
Little Overlord were in
The
charge
attack
of
was
defense,
aimed at Beast
while
Tamer
Sima
King
Ju and
Guguju
Ling
and the
Tianhan
others,
were in
who were
charge of
charging
killing.
towards Luo Qingtong.
Very quickly, the
Bang,
Yin corpse was
bang,
killed.
Bang.
Su Yu and
Beast
the others
Tamer
were also
King
injured,
Guguju
and the others were
They were
instantly
adjusting
sent
their
flying
breathing
by the
and taking
four
the
Yin
medicine
corpse
that
beasts
Su
and
Xiao
Zhuga
specially
13.
made for them.
Puff.
Those
Puff,
who were seriously
puff.
injured took the pills
They
that
spat
Luo
out
Qingtong
mouthfuls
had
of
left
blood
for them.
and looked at Luo
The
Qingtong's
group was
eyebrows
recovering
in
their
despair.
strength. The golden
Meanwhile,
light was about
the
to
entire
merge with her
land of the
body.
deceased immortals began
However,
to shake violently.
something that no one expected
The
happened.
people from the Sky Yuan
Boom.
sect, who were fighting with the
When
other
the golden
Yin
light
corpses,
mixed with the
also
illusory
looked in
light
the direction
rushed
of
into
Luo
tremors.
Qingtong's eyebrows.
It's the
Luo
forbidden
Qingtong's
area.
mind instantly boiled.
Bai Suqing and the Grand
Then,
Dean looked
her
at each
forehead
other.
became scalding hot.
The Sky
and the
Yuan
hexagram
sect
mark
sect
rose
master
up
and the
uncontrollably.
others also noticed the source
In
of
the
the
next
shaking.
second, the golden light
Seeing
mixed
the
with
surrounding
illusory
black
light
mist
was
stirring
ejected
violently,
from it, forming a black
That's right,
vortex that
it
could
was
kill
ejected.
people.
Completely ignoring
Luo
the aura of
Qingtong
the immortal
looked at the
jade
golden
bone,
light and
the
Zhuga
Sky Yuan
13's
sect
illusory
master
light
and
floating
the
in
others'
front of her
faces
was
was very
very
serious.
She raised her
Let's
hand
go
to
and
touch
take
her
a look.
forehead and found that the
For
hexagram
such a
mark
big
on her
shake
forehead
to
had
occur
appeared.
in the forbidden area,
This
it was unusual.
The mark of the contract
Could it
with
be
Heng
that the
Ji,
treasure in the
mark of
forbidden
the
area
heaven
had
and
some
earth
movement?
contract?
As the
Could
crowd
it be
thought
that
of
those
this,
with the
their
heaven
hearts
and earth
began to
contract
palpitate.
could not inherit this beast mark?
Everyone from the Sky Yuan
Luo
sect had been
Qingtong
searching
looked
for
at
Zhuga
Zhuga
13's
13's
beast mark inheritance,
However,
which
the
was about
scene
to
in the
rush
fallen
into her
immortal
mind
land
but
was
was
too
ejected
dangerous,
by the hexagram.
so they didn't dare to wander
Her
around.
lips twitched. It couldn't be that bad, right? Originally,
Could
he
it be
wanted
that
to train
because
at the
the heaven
place
and
where
earth
he and the
contract
rest
was
often
authentic.
trained for a
It could
period
not
of time
tolerate
before
a
heading
pirate
to the
version of the
restricted
beast
area
mark
to see if Luo
inheritance.
Qingtong would go there.
But if she couldn't inherit this
After
beast
all,
mark,
the girl
then
was
she
in
wouldn't be
possession
able to
of
get
that
out of this
treasure map,
crisis.
and there was no reason for
Seeing
her
that
to
the
let
four
go of the
Yin
things
corpse
inside.
beasts and Zhuga 13's
Otherwise,
Yin corpse had
she wouldn't
already
make a
avoided
deal
her.
with them.
But
But
now,
before they could,
because the golden
before
light
the
and
forbidden
Zhuga
Shirsan's shadow had been ejected,
she no longer had the aura of the
group
beast mark
tested the immortal
inheritance in
land
her
immortal
body.
TSS immortal
The
along
four
the way.
Yin corpse
They didn't
beasts
know how
and
many
Zhuga
sects they met.
Shirsan's Yin corpse looked at her
All
again.
of them were heading for the forbidden
Roar.
area.
A
Outside
Yin
the
corpse
fallen
beast
immortal
crushed
land,
the sternum of a beast
the
taming
Star
King's
Alliance
Valley
palace
expert,
master
then
and the
turned
others
around
who had
and
been
roared
guarding
at her.
outside also felt
With
the
a
strange
leap,
movement
he
in the
charged
fallen immortal
towards her.
land. The other 3 Yin corpse beasts were the same. Not to
to mention Zhuge Shursan's corpse. Chapter 21. After a shriek, it grabbed at Luo Qingtong. That spiritual energy hurricane was like his attacks were even more ferocious than when he faced Beast Tamer King place in the center of the land of the fallen immortals. Because those who couldn't obtain the Beast Mark inheritance didn't want to fulfill the agreement with Zhuge 13. Heaven and earth resonated with each other, and the spiritual energy was vast and mighty. Luo Qingtong couldn't inherit the Beast Mark. There were also countless because she had the heaven and earth soaring dragons and dancing phoenixes, Luo Qingtong's lips and the laws of heaven and earth descended. At this moment, Beast Tamer King and mighty power and the others cried out in surprise and rushed towards the golden light even though they were far away from the land of the fallen immortals. That was the true inheritance in the depths of the cave. Great. With it, they would receive unparalleled extraordinary treasures in here. The Star Alliance Temple Master was shocked and pleasantly surprised.
Luo Qingtong,
he looked up to the sky
I didn't think
and
that you wouldn't be able to get the
rejoicing that he
recognition
had made
of
a
this
prompt
distinguished
decision
one.
to surround the entire land of the fallen immortals.
Beast tamer King Guguju
It could actually cause the
loudly.
laws to resonate.
He
and
was
the
just
god
about
beast
to
phantoms.
lose all hope.
He was afraid that the treasure
He didn't
inside
think that there
was
would
really
be
a
a silver
sector
lining,
beast.
Luo
Just as the
Qingtong
secret
wouldn't be
story
able
he
to
had
fuse with
accidentally
that golden
obtained
light.
had said.
Now
The
this
sector beast
opportunity
was said to be
belonged to
more
their
precious
beast
and
tamer
powerful
King
than
Valley.
the ancient god beasts.
Beast tamer King Guguju's
It was formed from
heart
the
was
world's
filled with
origin laws
unspeakable
of heaven
pride.
and earth that had evolved to
He
the
didn't know
extreme.
that Luo Qingtong was
It
able
was
to
born
repel
with
that
an
golden
incomparably
light because
powerful
of the
origin
heaven and
power.
earth contract.
Legend had it
He
that
thought
the person
that
who
Luo
owned the
Qingtong
sector
wasn't
beast
able
could
to get the
control the law
recognition
and
of
had
that
taken
golden
form of
shadow,
fluid, and thus surpassed
Luo
that law of
Qingtong
heaven and
looked
earth.
at the four corpse beasts
For example,
and Zhuge
if the sector
Shursan's
beast
corpse
was the
rushing
embodiment
towards
of the
her,
metal law,
her eyes
then
suddenly
under the
narrowed.
influence of that sector beast,
If she couldn't
all
get
the metal
beast
law
mark
would be controlled
inheritance,
by the person
how could
who
she
owned
get
it.
out of this dangerous situation?
Not only that, legend
No
had
matter
it that
what,
when the
she
sector
couldn't
beast
let the
grew
people
to the
of
extreme,
Beast Tamer
it
King
could even
Valley get the
transform
beast
into
mark
a world.
inheritance.
There,
Not
all
to
the metal
mention,
law would
the
be
beast mark
controlled by it.
inheritance seemed to be the only
Everyone
key
who
to
entered would have to
escape
listen
from
to
these
corpse
orders.
beasts and corpses.
Such a place was called the World
What should
Land.
she do?
Anyone
Luo
who entered that
Qingtong's hand
place,
reached out
as
and
long
grabbed
as the
the
golden
sector
light
beast
into
was
her
willing,
hand,
could be bestowed with
that
the power
ball
of the
golden
metal
light
law,
was still
allowing them to have a
persistently
metal
trying to hit
soul
her forehead.
sealed.
With
This
so
heaven
many
and earth
benefits,
beast taming
it made
art was
everyone
modified
scramble
by
for the
Zhuge
sector beast
Shursan
like a
according
flock
to the
of
heaven
ducks.
and earth contract.
Even the peerless
Just now,
powerhouses from the
he
outer
felt the
realms
pure
were no
aura of the
exception.
heaven and earth contract
When
on
the
Luo
Star
Qingtong's
Alliance
forehead,
Temple Master
so
heard this
naturally it
secret
wanted to
before,
enter her body.
he only treated it as a rumor
Moreover,
and didn't take it to
Luo
heart.
Qingtong was the one who got
After
the black
all,
package,
how rare
so
were the
naturally
sector
she was
beasts
the
in this
inheritor
world.
recognized by Zhuge
They were
Shursan's
basically
remnant
legends,
consciousness, and no one had even seen
But the
them
heaven
before.
and earth contract in Luo
How could they
Qingtong's
appear on
body
this
was
inferior
extremely
and
overbearing.
barren continent of
It
the
simply
true
didn't
spill
allow the
continent.
inferior beast mark
To be
inheritance
honest,
to
if
coexist
he hadn't
with it
committed
in
some
Luo
crimes
Qingtong's
and had
body.
no choice but to be demoted
That's right.
here, he wouldn't have come
From
to
the
this
heaven and
continent
earth
at all.
contract's point of view,
The
beast
spiritual
mark
energy here
inheritance
was
that
so
only
barren
received
that it
a
wasn't
part of the
suitable
heaven
for
and
venerable
earth contract's
powerhouses
effect
like
was
them
only
to cultivate.
inferior.
Only
How could it
fools would
coexist
come
with
here.
it in Luo Qingtong's body? When Luo Qingtong caught the golden light in her
However,
hands,
who would
the
have
latter
thought
was
that the
still
rumor that
struggling
he had
with
heard
all
as a
its might.
joke and a rumor would come
At
true
this
right in
moment,
front of him.
Luo Qingtong had
The
already
Star
stood up.
Alliance Palace Master
Bang,
looked at
bang,
the scene
bang.
of hundreds of beasts roaring
Beast
in unison
tamer
in front of
King
him and
Guguju
laughed with
and the
incomparable
others who were
pride
charging
and joy.
towards her collided with the
Have
four
people
corpse
surround this
beasts
place
and
of the
Zhuge
fallen
13.
immortals.
In the
Send
blink
more
of an
people
eye,
here
a
immediately.
few more screams rang out
Don't
as
let
more
anyone
of
in
the
here
beast taming
go.
King's Valley's disciples
I must
died.
get my hands on that treasure.
Bastard.
The Star
Seeing
Alliance
that
Temple
Luo
Temple of the
Qingtong
Star
had once again
dodged
dodged
the
their
sector of the
attacks,
fallen
Beast
immortal
tamer
of the fallen
King
of the fallen
Guguju
fallen
and the others
immortal
clenched
fallen.
their teeth in anger.
He sectors of the
That
the universe
asterisk
the outer realm was
TCH.
so vast that he could do as
If
he
it wasn't for
pleased,
the four
didn't it?
corpse beasts and
Of
the
the
corpse
he
being
of
a
the
hindrance,
of the
with
Lord
their
of the
strength
of
and
the
numbers,
fallen,
they could have easily
even
killed
the
her.
Alliance Master would have to
Even
treat
if
him
she
with
had a
respect.
strange ability that allowed her to
Thinking
see
of
through
this,
their movements,
the smile on
how
the
could
face
she have
of the
enough
Star
strength
Alliance
to deal with
Temple
them once
Master
surrounded?
became even more proud.
But
When
these
the Star
four
Alliance
corpse
Temple
beasts
Master
and that
gave
corpse
corpse,
Yi
made their
Qianxian
hands
and
and
the
feet
others
tied.
also noticed
They had
the
no
strange
choice
phenomenon
but to
in the
divert
middle
their
of the
attention
fallen
to deal
immortal
with
with
the
them.
fallen immortal.
They gave this B***TCH a chance for no reason. Beast tamer King Guguju was extremely
Chapter
angry,
2109.
but he still managed to maintain his
Master,
rationality.
Bei Qing,
Wind Feather,
continued
and
to
the others
charge.
all looked at Yi Qianxian.
I don't believe that she can keep
All of them
dodging.
had extraordinary statuses.
This
so they could naturally see
TCH's
what was
ability
going on.
must have a flaw.
Sector Beast.
Not to mention other things.
The legendary
it definitely
Sector
wouldn't
Beast,
last long.
which was even more precious than
He wanted
ancient
to see where she
mythological
could
beasts,
hide.
had actually appeared
Beast
on a
tamer
low-level
King
continent like the
Guguju's
true
guess was
spill
right.
continent. Luo
No wonder
Qingtong's
those powerhouses
relied
who
on
had died in the
spiritual
land of the
power to
fallen
maintain.
immortals were so united that they
The
didn't
young
even
girl
leak
had
any
lived
information
2
about
lives
it.
and cultivated
They
spiritual
were still
power.
guessing what kind
Her
of treasure
spiritual
it was
power
that caused these
naturally many
powerhouses
times
to not
stronger
leak
than
any
normal
information
people.
even after they had died.
Not only that,
Chapter
but their obsessions
2095.
after death had condensed
If
and
this
not
continued,
dissipated. The first to collapse
not
would be
only
Luo
did they form the
Qingtong.
land of the fallen immortals,
She had to think
but they
of a
also
solution.
used their minds to gather and
Luo
prevent other
Qingtong's eyes
powerhouses and
narrowed.
powerhouses from entering.
She took advantage of the
So
collision
it was a
between
sector
Beast
beast.
tamer King Guguju
Then
and the
all
Yin
of this
corpses
wasn't
to
surprising.
escape. When she
After
saw
all,
the giant
even on their
blood-colored
side,
shadow
a
rushing
sector
towards
beast was extremely eye-catching and coveted. At this moment, these powerhouses who knew about the sector beast's existence dared to leak any information to the outside world, let her inherit not to mention themselves. As even their friends and family would not be spared. Saint's corpse puppet grabbed him. It was no wonder that they had hidden this information so well. However,
the
one
appearance
person
of the
and
sector
one
beast
corpse
had
had
caused
been standing in
such
a
a
corner,
huge commotion
watching
that
the
it was
fierce
likely
battle
that this
between
matter
Luo
could no longer be
Qingtong and Beast
concealed.
Tamer King Guguju.
Even if
and
the people of the
corpses.
Star Alliance Palace didn't
Seeing
know
that
what this
Luo
thing
Qingtong was
they
unable
would
to absorb
absolutely
the
not
golden
give up
light
after seeing the
inheritance,
phenomenon
Little
in the
Pig
sky.
suddenly patted his head with
Yi
his little
Qinshian's
hoof.
eyes were cold as he looked at the
I
phenomenon
forgot that
in the
she has
sky.
the heaven and earth contract.
Gather all the people near us.
The heaven and earth contract was
Immerse
already
he
the
spoke
highest
of was
beast
naturally
tamer
not near
contract
the
in the
land
world.
of the fallen immortals.
How
But
could it
near the
allow
outskirts
other
of the
beast
tamer
tamer
arts to be in Luo Qingtong's body?
Yi Qinshian didn't have
Not to
many
mention
people
that
here.
she had to inherit the other
The
party's
true
beast
spill
mark.
continent was really too remote.
Obviously, the heaven and
For
earth
Yi
contract
Qinshian's
wasn't
forces,
happy.
the
So it
difference was like
ejected
a
the
remote
beast mark
village and a
inheritance.
city in the capital.
What should they do now?
However, even if there weren't
Little
many,
Pig
it was
frowned.
enough to deal with the Star
At this
Alliance
moment,
palace.
his
in the
gaze
true
swept
spill
over to
continent.
Yun Shi. The news
She
of
was
the
looking
sector
at Luo
beast's appearance
Qingtong
here
with a
couldn't
nervous
be easily
expression.
spread. Yun Shi
Yes.
didn't know what the golden light
Bei
inheritance
Qing,
was,
Wind
but
Feather,
based on
and
the
the
current
others quickly
situation,
responded.
it must be what the beast
However,
tamer King's
Wind
Valley
Feather's
wanted.
expression was somewhat
And
hesitant.
Luo Qingtong was being
Once
chased
those
by
powerhouses
both
above
because
the
she failed
Exalt
to
realm
integrate
were
the golden
mobilized,
light inheritance.
Master's identity would be exposed.
Coupled with the giant blood-colored
This,
shadow
it's
roaring
all
and
right.
rushing towards her. Her
Yi
situation's
Qinshian's
could be said
expression
to
was
be
indifferent.
extremely dangerous.
He hid his identity
If it weren't for
because he
Luo
didn't want
Qingtong's
Luo
blood
Qingtong
eyes
to face
and the
pressure
blood-colored
from the other
shadow
side
being
too
corpses.
early. And Beast Tamer
But
King
since he couldn't
Guguju's
hide it
group
anymore,
restraining each
there was
other,
no need
they
to
would have
hide it
formed a
anymore.
delicate balance. He hid his identity
She would have
for
already
Luo
suffered a
Qingtong.
calamity.
Now that he
Just
had
as
revealed
Beast
his
Tamer
identity,
King
it was
Guguju
all
and
for
the others
Luo
could think
Qingtong.
that Luo Qingtong's blood
The
eyes
girl was
couldn't
the
last
only
long.
basis of
Yun
his
Shi
life's
could
code
also
of
think of
conduct.
this point. He could
Her
break
palms were
everything
sweaty
for her.
from the pinching.
Moreover,
Luo
after this trip
Qingtong
to the
had
land
saved
of
her
the
several
deceased
times
immortals,
and always
he
kept
was
her
going
by
to
her
take her
side
back
to
to
protect her.
the other side. Although Luo Qingtong didn't think much of it, Yun Shi was very
It didn't
grateful
matter
to
if
her.
his identity was exposed
Without
or not.
Luo Qingtong, with her
Yes.
strength, she definitely
As
wouldn't
soon
be
as
able
Yi
to survive.
Qinshian spoke,
Bei Qing,
now that she
Feng
saw
Yu,
Luo Qingtong
and the others
in
were
danger,
pleasantly
she was
surprised.
naturally very worried.
Based on Master's words,
If possible,
did he intend
she didn't
to
want
bring
something
evil
bad
doctor
to happen
back
to
Luo
that side.
Qingtong?
But she didn't have any ability.
It feels so good.
She didn't have any strength.
Master is finally returning to
Just
that
as Yun
side.
Shi was feeling anxious and
Bei Qing
uncomfortable,
and Feng Yu
Little
were still
Pig's
grinning
voice
from
suddenly
ear to
rang
ear
in
when
her
they
ear.
left.
Yun
Only
Shi
the
was taken
heavens
aback
knew that
for
he
a
was
moment.
about to die from waiting.
Are you willing?
Those people who looked down on others and thought that their master wouldn't live for long, so they were waiting for their master to die so that they could inherit everything. They were finally going to be taught a lesson.
Chapter 21:10. Bei Qing chuckled as he spoke. If those people knew that Master didn't want to die, and was actively looking for a way to extend his life, and had already succeeded in extending his life for 3 years, what would those people's expressions be like? They would probably be uglier than eating shit. As for Feng Yu and the others, their faces were filled with joy and happiness. Only the heavens knew that they had been waiting for Yi Qinshian to change his mind and be willing to go back to the other side. But as the treatment of the heavenly pulse body became ineffective, Master didn't want to live anymore. Even if there was a way to extend his life, he didn't want to try it. This was a very normal thing. After all, he was destined to be a king, but because of his excellence and glory, he was not tolerated by the heavens. Even if his strength was at the peak of arrogance, he could only be suppressed and reduced. Who could endure such humiliation and humiliation? What's more, Master was such a proud person. But this was different. Master had met the evil doctor, and there was a possibility that the heavenly pulse body could be cured. As long as the evil doctor's strength continued to increase, when she stood side by side with Master, she would immediately be able to remove the shackles of heaven from Master's body. In this way, what did Master have to fear? Not to mention the existence of the evil doctor. Master also had a reason to live. He wanted to see the girl and the pearl that belonged to him, under the sky of this star field, radiant and glorious. For this, he was willing to continue to endure and bear the injustice that the heavenly Tao imposed on him. In the past, everything that was difficult to bear and unwilling to bear was because he didn't have a reason or hope to persevere. But now, he had. He wanted to accompany his girl for the rest of her life. If she didn't die, he wouldn't die. Even if the heavenly Tao forced him, he would never bow his head in fear. Bei Qing, Feng Yu, and the others were grateful to Luo Qingtong from the bottom of their hearts. If it weren't for the girl's appearance, Yi Qinshian would have spent the last 3 years of his life in the true spill continent in silence. Then at 28, when the time came, he would die, just like those people with the heavenly vein body who had appeared before. As for those who had chosen to follow Yi Qianxian, they would also be leaving with their master. It could be said that Luo Qingtong's appearance had not only saved Yi Qianxian, but also saved them. The group left in high spirits. Yi Qianxian stood on the mountain peak with his hands behind his back, looking in the direction of the land of the fallen immortals. In his eyes, the place where the incomparably huge spiritual energy hurricane swept up was actually surrounded by the consciousness bodies of countless foreign experts. The huge consciousness bodies formed by the foreign experts were happily looking in the direction of the spirit chi hurricane. They let out sharp roars as if they were waiting for something. That expression was indescribably smug and greedy. Yi Qianxian narrowed his eyes as he watched. Somewhere in the extraterritorial Star Alliance, a young girl in a light white robe was looking at a Star Alliance expert who had come to report to her with a surprised expression. She asked, "Are you sure? Did you really find him?" "Yes." The Star Alliance powerhouse cupped his fists and nodded. That powerhouse is currently in a place called the True Spill Continent. Chapter 21:11. As the Star Alliance powerhouse spoke, his heart was filled with disbelief. True Spill Continent, a low-level 9th-ranked continent. If they hadn't confirmed it multiple times, they wouldn't have believed that the man who could easily shatter the Mrs. Spirit Mirror would be in such a low-level continent. A 9th-ranked continent, and the one with the most barren spiritual energy, it was almost impossible to raise the level of a continent. In such a place, why would that powerhouse go there? Could it be that he had something to do, so he temporarily stayed there? The Star Alliance powerhouse didn't understand, but this didn't prevent him from reporting the other party's whereabouts. Hearing this, the Star Alliance eldest young miss immediately laughed. "Good. Have everyone prepare. We'll go to True Spill Continent together." Mo Zhuling was overjoyed. After so many years, this was the first time that she had been so obsessed with a man. During this time, all she could think about was finding Yi Qianxian. For this, she didn't hesitate to use her father's favor. He had someone extract the aura from his spirit mirror fragment and trace it all the way to the True Spill Continent. Thinking that she would soon be able to see the man she had glimpsed in the spirit mirror, the man she would never forget, Mo Zhuling's face was filled with joy. Land of the Fallen Immortals, Broken Star Valley. Luo Qingtong didn't know that this had happened. She heard the rumbling outside, and then there was no more sound, so she didn't pay any attention to it. Being underground and separated by a thick layer of mud, Luo Qingtong didn't know what was happening outside. She also didn't know that a great change had occurred in the Forbidden Zone. The Forbidden Zone's treasure was about to come out. She frowned as she looked at the direction of the mudslide in front of her. Since she wasn't going to go out through this tunnel, she could only go back the way she came. Fortunately, there was no more movement outside. Presumably, the beast-taming King Valley people had already left. But thinking about it, the shaking was so big that the mountain collapsed and the cave collapsed. If she hadn't died in this cave, she would have already rushed out. Why would she wait until now? The people from the beast-taming King's Valley waited outside for a while. When they didn't see her, they naturally thought that she was dead. Time was precious in the graveyard of immortals. The people of beast-taming King's Valley would be stupid to stay here and guard her. However, the power of this mudslide was too strong. With the ruins of an entire mountain on top of it, it would not be easy to get out. Luo Qingtong frowned as she thought about it. Bang! After waiting for a while and confirming that there was no one outside, Luo Qingtong raised her sword and slashed out. Boom! The entire underground area covered by the mudslide suddenly trembled. Under the might of Luo Qingtong's sword, the mudslide that had rushed in from the tunnel was suddenly blasted forward for tens of meters, and then pressed back with a boom. No. Luo Qingtong frowned slightly. She wasn't strong enough. The mudslide was fluid. Unless she blasted away all the ruins and rocks covering the tunnel with one blow. Otherwise, at the moment her power was reduced, the other mudslides would surge in from other places and seal the passage she had opened once again. And to blast open this tunnel with one blow. Chapter 21:12. After all, this was the collapsed soil of an entire mountain. Even so, the power of her crimson eyes was also taken into account. She could calculate where the soil was the easiest to blast open, where the soil was the weakest, and where the attack power was the least, reducing the difficulty by at least 10 times. Otherwise, even a peak Holy Spirit realm expert, close to the Holy Venerable realm, would not be able to blast open the soil and escape, let alone a Holy Emperor realm expert. She could only leave through that tunnel. Thinking of this, Luo Qingtong breathed a sigh of relief. Fortunately, when she killed the gigantic crimson figure, she had conveniently collected the body of the gigantic crimson figure in her hand. Although it was shattered and its level was greatly reduced, it was enough for her to reach the Holy Emperor realm. After all, the giant crimson figure was in the Holy Spirit realm. Even if it was reduced by one level, it was enough for her to reach the Holy Emperor realm. Thinking of this, Luo Qingtong immediately took out the shattered body of the giant crimson figure. That giant crimson immortal jade bone was shattered into countless pieces by Luo Qingtong's sword. Luo Qingtong did not take the smaller pieces, because that kind of crimson immortal jade bone was actually useless. As for the remaining blood-colored immortal jade bones, they were about the size of 2 palms. Fortunately, the body of the giant crimson immortal jade bone was big enough. Otherwise, under Luo Qingtong's sword, not to mention the Holy Emperor immortal jade bone, she might not even be able to get a piece of it. Luo Qingtong took the largest crimson immortal jade bone in her hand. Then, after thinking for a while, she threw a smaller crimson immortal jade bone fragment to Yun Shi along with the other crimson immortal jade bone fragments she had obtained in the Shattered Star Valley. That's right, when she rushed into the Shattered Star Valley with the other forces, Luo Qingtong had collected all the bodies of the crimson figures she had killed. These could help the people around her improve their strength as quickly as possible. If she did not collect them, would she just wait to abandon them in the valley? It should be known that after those forces were wiped out, there was no one from the beast-taming King Valley to take the blame. With Luo Qingtong's current strength, she couldn't travel through the broken Star Valley as easily as before. By then, even if he could kill a few of the bloody figures, he might not be able to obtain their bodies. After all, that place was filled with blood-red figures. However, he had a way to deal with these crimson figures. In the future, when Su Yu and the others' strength increased, he could bring them here to hunt these crimson figures. In any case, one could never have too many good things, not to mention these blood-colored immortal jade bones that could help her subordinates increase their strength, increase their comprehension, and allow them to break through bottlenecks without any hindrance. This blood-colored immortal jade bone was comparable to several ordinary immortal jade bones. What's more, the combat skills and cultivation experience contained in it could be used almost immediately after being absorbed. It was much more useful than ordinary treasures that could increase one's strength. Why not use it? While Luo Qingtong was thinking about this, Yun Shi had already caught what she had thrown over. She looked at the crimson immortal jade bone in her hand with a surprised expression. Because Yun Shi had been purified, and because she had been protected by Luo Qingtong, she didn't see the bodies of the bloody figures in the middle of the team. Naturally, she didn't know what this thing was. You're tuning into the Romantic Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.